and Ms. Zarin Virji by our founder director, Mrs. Malti Kalmadi. And the book is very simply written, but about some very complex issues. It's very relatable because it is in the Indian context. And, there's a dearth of literature in the Indian context on gifted with disability as well. So let me introduce our guest today. So Zarin Virji ma'am, she is a graduate of the creative writing program from University of Sheffield, UK, and she has experience of over 3 decades as a teacher trainer, and the head of schools. And as with 3 decades of such experience in the education system, she's certainly a passionate educator and a writer. Her work has been featured in various journals and anthologies, including the Best Asian Short Stories 2018. She's also won the Kaling Lit Fest Award for Best Children's Book in 2023 for the book Gopal's Gully, that is also written from the point of view of another kid. And in 2024, she published 2 books. One is Of Feathers and Wings, and the second one is Living with Adi. So, Zareen ma'am, thank you for being with us today. Maybe I can pin you. Yeah.
Thank you, Samina and Malti ma'am. Lovely to be here. I can see Pallavi, another friend. So nice to be among some familiar faces. And of course, a lot of people I haven't met so far.
Right. Yes. So I remember wanting to read this book very, very eagerly after Malti ma'am wrote a beautiful review of the book. And she wrote something to the effect of it's a profound exploration of childhood and education. And certainly it's really given all of us also a perspective of what children with special needs might be experiencing in the school system, as well as the parents. And the book significantly talks about all the stakeholders involved in this process. And I think because you've had such vast experience with parents as a teacher in the school system, you've been able to really you know put pen down beautiful moments across the school life of a child, which I found very, very endearing, and very, very from our cultural context. So that was really, really lovely for me to read. I think parents would find it very relatable. Teachers would find it very helpful to also read this book. I also remember Malti ma'am kind of mentioning that how it really talks about contemporary issues, and these are her words, such as family dynamics, mixed marriages from different cultural backgrounds, the influence of multi-generational families, and cultural stigmas. Particularly noteworthy is the attention given to the needs of adolescents and nurturing of children with special needs, such as dyslexia and autism. The book highlights the inadequacies within the school systems in identifying and supporting children with special needs due to a lack of experience and knowledge. And, we at the Kaveri Group of Institutes are fortunate because the management and the school leaders have made sure that the schools are equipped with counselors, with special educators, with gifted educators to meet the needs of these children. And yet, I know we have a long way to go. So, would you like to share a little more about yourself before I have a series of questions laid out for you?
The only thing I would like to say is that, being with children is a learning journey. If you are observant and you're willing to listen, you hear so much that no degree can teach you, or equip you with. So I just feel very fortunate that I've had this experience of being among children and learning with them.
So wonderfully spoken. Yeah, learning with them, right? It's really a symbiotic process that happens. So begin with, I would love to know what inspired you to write this book, especially with a boy with ASD. Um, do you have any personal experiences or connections related to autism?
Yes. So, um, of course, uh, I never kind of sit down to say that, let me write about this, or, it doesn't happen that way. Um, for me, the sort of thought just emerges sometimes that this is what I want to talk about. And so from the beginning, this thought came that, yes, let me write about a child on the ASD spectrum. And it needs to be a very gentle uh, and a humorous kind of exploration. So it's not that we are pitying the individual or we are preaching about what he or she needs, but it's more about you know just sharing. And then yes, and as you rightly say, I have had experience of having these children in my various schools that I worked with. So I have been with them. I have again learned with them what works, what doesn't work, you know. Uh, I've also seen the pain that their parents go through. Uh, Also, the school system as a whole, because while we say that we would like to include everyone, it's often difficult for a school to have that kind of, you know, ability to take these children on. Um, so I've seen that side of it as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're rightly saying that although we would love to, there are certain challenges that we come across, and maybe we'll talk about that a little later. Um, and of course, you had a plethora of your own experiences in the system as a teacher to help you kind of come up with these characters and the classroom scenarios that you've so vividly kind of captured in the book. Um, but was there any additional research that you needed to do because this was a specific disability that you were talking about?
Right. So, um, of course, I did some reading online, but I would not like to say that because I was writing the book, I did the reading. But as a teacher, as a head of school, if I have to deal with these children, I have to know, right, what they are all about, what is the latest research, how can we best accommodate them, give them a nurturing and stimulating environment. So, in that sense, that the research has been happening for some years. And again, by trial and error, I have just seen how one thing that works with one individual may not work with another.
That is so true about all kids, right? You have to really come up with very distinct strategies to engage them, to meaningfully create learning environments for them. Um, I wonder if you were able to see what's happening in the Indian context vis-a-vis, the global context as far as students with special needs are concerned.
So I cannot say I have actual, experience of going into schools in other countries. I can only rely upon the reading.
Sure.
Um, and while, they may have more facilities,
Mhm.
I think finally it boils down to the human beings. And I have seen in the Indian context, I have seen even in rural schools, if there is a spirited teacher who is willing to go the extra mile, who is willing to make a difference, who has that level of care for the child,
Mm.
I think everything else can fall into place.
Mm.
Uh, yes, of course, it helps to have laws like now we also have in India, right? We do have the laws.
Yes.
We are supposed to have certain facilities. So, yes, that is all a help. But at the same time, I will say the most important is the human personnel
Mm.
who are involved, who are around this child, you know.
Yeah. Uh, so now that we've started speaking about school and teachers, you know, considering also your vast experiences, even across types of schools that you have said that, you have worked with. Um, so you're saying one is definitely the the right intention of a teacher to be sensitive and to understand children and to be able to kind of meet their needs. What can be other things that might be helpful?
So I think there is an openness to learning,
Mm.
you know. So even if I don't know anything about it, but can I find out? Can I uh, make sure? Can I collaborate with others, perhaps, who have had experience,
Mm.
right?
Right.
And then can we get the infrastructure in place? For instance, even ramps in school
Mm.
for the physically challenged.
Mm.
Now, again, it's a requirement
Mm.
by law, and yet we see that not all schools have this, or
Mm.
if they have it, again, it is not really convenient.
Mm.
It's more for the sake of ticking off boxes
Mm.
rather than seeing that the washrooms are equipped and you know so all these things, it's just a process of openness, of learning, and then, of course, investing time, money, and energy in all that, right? Because as I I love to say this that somebody taught me once that every child in a school is a special needs child
Mm.
because every child is unique, and it is the teacher who has to reach out to this different individual
Mm.
and to give something that is more customized than just the sort of average, offering.
Right. Yeah. uh, even in the Kaveri group of institutes, we really believe that every child is different and every child is unique and every child has potential, and therefore we do need to customize. And I really think there is nothing like an average child or a normal child. uh, Everyone is so different and unique in their own ways.
And sorry to interrupt, but I do want to say that I'm not presenting a sort of idealized version here. Okay. I've also been at the receiving end where I felt like tearing my hair with some children and wishing they would just fall off the face of the earth. You know? So
Yeah.
I'm saying these are the kinds of frustrations we all go through.
Mm.
Uh, Also, I want to state here that we can have our favorites, you know, because we are human. So
Yeah.
we will have likes, we will have dislikes, and that's okay. I don't think we are saints, you know. However, What is not okay, of course, is that, so let me be self-aware of what are my likes and dislikes, who are the children I'm more fond of. And then once I'm aware of this, take care that when I treat those children, I don't treat them differently. I mean, there's equity, uh,
Mm.
and that every child, whether liked or not liked, is. So I'm not saying that, oh, I have achieved it, but certainly I have made an effort to walk this path.
So I was wondering that you did touch upon a little bit about what the teacher uh, can do, or it can be helpful for the teacher. What would be the role of the school management or the leaders or the principals?
Right. So when it comes to school management, I think the policy has to be that we will try our best to admit all shades of children.
Mm.
And while I have seen in some schools the policy on paper exists, but in spirit, they are very quick to dismiss these kinds of children and have some kind of excuse to not admit these children. Uh, in fact, um, in one of the schools I worked with, where we had a very open policy, we went to the other extreme in the sense that parents would come to us and say, we have heard this is a school for special children. So, therefore, we have come.
Mm.
And while we have said, no, no, that is not true. This is a mainstream school like any other. Yes, we would like to claim that we admit every kind of child, but at the same time, we have certain limitations. No? And perhaps there are children who will benefit from a special education more than going to a mainstream school.
Right. Um, if I have to come back a little bit to the giftedness context, for the gifted child who has a disability, um, there is such a huge conflict of where they fit, right? Because, like you said, certain schools are looked at there for special education, or certain programs are there for the disability part of it. But that child also has amazing talents, or brilliance, or some cognitive abilities that really make them stand out. And this is often a dilemma that I see parents struggle with, especially of a gifted child with a disability. Uh, have you come across such parents, and what has been their experience regarding that? And I can share a little bit about the parents that I've come across too.
Yeah. So I think with parents, the first thing, of course, is are they in denial or do they accept the child fully? You
Mm.
know? And sometimes there can be a difference of opinion in the mother and the father as well, like I have shown in this particular book,
Right.
uh, where the father is not willing to accept that anything is wrong with his son because he's doing so well academically.
Yeah.
Similarly, the grandmother feels that this is just disciplining, that the mother has not disciplined her child and therefore he's playing up
Mm.
and he gets away with all these things.
Mm.
So I think that aspect of the parents has to be dealt with first. And then, of course, once there is this kind of trust, let's say, on both sides,
Mhm.
where the parents trust the school for having the best interests of the child, uh, And similarly, the school trusts parents that they will perhaps go for additional therapy sessions or, whatever is required. I think then it becomes a good team effort.
Mm,
And then, I think again, every child, has something beautiful, something positive.
yeah.
So once we pick that up, I think we can easily nurture that
Mm,
in a classroom.
right. So, that trusting relationship between the parents and school is so important, like you said. And I remember this family that I had come across, and fortunately, the parents had accepted that their child is different, but they were also very aware of the talent areas, and they really wanted to have that part nurtured. But unfortunately, all the condition that the school had kept, like the first, the behavior has to be fixed. And then we will talk about the talent of your child, right? Uh,
Hmm.
but with especially this very unique group of gifted with disability, it doesn't work like that, right? And the parents were struggling to explain to the school that if you address his need for challenge and stimulation, then certain behavioral challenges might just organically drop off. There will still remain some, but and it just got stuck there with the school. So yeah, this it's so important to have a good relationship between the parent and the school. And on the other hand, I've also had parents who've been able to establish those wonderful relationships with the teachers.
Hmm.
And every year, right, every year they would go back to the school, and there would be a new set of teachers, and they would very strongly and very gently as well advocate and help teachers understand their child. And that did wonders in that school. So even without necessarily a special educator looking at this child, the teachers, the team of teachers and the parents together were able to develop a very conducive learning environment.
Beautiful, Samina. Um, I just remembered a child with cerebral palsy who used to come to our school in a wheelchair. And, when we had our annual day celebration, we had a policy that every child will be on stage. So we included this child, but not in, not just to again tick the boxes, but
Mm,
we kind of altered the script of whatever we were presenting so that his entry in a wheelchair was part of the narrative, and he wasn't just sticking out like a sore thumb.
mm,
So that did a lot for his self esteem. And of course, the parents were beaming to
absolutely.
have him included there. I think so. One needs a little imagination to make these kinds of accommodations. But again, I will insist that that comes only with care, you know. So if the head of school makes it known to staff that, I care about every single child in this school, and we are going to see how to include and how to really nurture every single child, then I think the message goes through, you
Mm,
know, and yeah, the other aspect, of course, is to sensitize uh, the children, in the class
mm,
about different abilities, disabilities, right? So while one view is that, oh, let's not say it, so they will not label the child, you know.
right.
Uh, on the other hand, I think what has worked, at least in our situation, is that we have shared that this particular child has, if the needs are very apparent, I mean, not slightly no need,
Right.
but if they are kind of overwhelming, then it's good to share that information and say that therefore we are going to perhaps do XYZ to make this child comfortable in our class. And again, we have seen then the empathy that builds up,
Mm.
because while some children may do the wrong thing, and by and large, the class demonstrates that empathy, and through that, everybody grows in compassion.
Absolutely. What
Right.
what wonderful example of, like the first part that you said of really changing the script to really truly include and integrate, right? Rather than just have for the name, namesake of having. And yeah, and again, the title of your book, Living with Adi, just says that it's really about how others are perceiving that child and their abilities and their disabilities and challenges, like you're saying, right? And be able to sensitize therefore the peer group and the family and the friends. And um, and I think that's really, really important to change perceptions of people. Easier said than done, sure. Do you have any experiences in where that has made a difference?
I think, like I just shared, that I have seen how okay, recently we had a class reunion with a school that I used to be at. Um, and we had this one child who had both dyslexia and ADHD.
Okay.
And this child was uncontrollable, sort of, uh, and got into physical fights
Mm,
almost on a daily basis,
mm,
and where other parents had even told us that this child has no right to be in the class because he is a risk to other children.
mm.
And this is something we battle with daily. How do we help him? Mm. But recently, when I met him, and he is 25, 26 years old, and to see how he has kind of calmed down and he is holding a good marketing job,
Mhm,
he is caring for his family.
mhm,
It just felt like it was all worth it. All the kind of tears we went through on a daily basis. There was this other child also who was dyslexic,
mm,
and again, the parents were kind of tearing their hair that he will never make anything of himself, you know, and he's a stain on their family honor or dignity or whatever. And now he directs films, uh,
Oh,
and he's just such a wonderful individual, and of course, like we all say, when these things are so important in school, like what is the grade and who has stood first or all those terrible things, we know that in later life, who the hell cares what your grade in school was, or what your grade at level 10 was, or
right.
uh, these things don't matter.
Yeah,
It's how you conduct yourself in your adult life.
absolutely. I have seen often that, just today we were in a teacher training, we were talking about how some of the naughty kids are the ones who are talented actually. And sometimes it's especially like in the case of ADD and ADHD, a lot of just gifted kids, kids with high ability, high curiosity, high energy, lots of questions to ask, and lots of things they want to do, are misdiagnosed as ADD and ADHD. And that is something I would love for our participants to understand. I'm not saying that every kid with ADD and ADHD would be gifted, but there are some whose learning needs have not been understood, who've been tried to kind of, fit the mold, right? Fit the
Mm,
existing
mm,
system.
mm,
And we really need to be more aware, because we're going to lose out on their creativity and their talent. And of course, some of them are fortunate and they, navigate through all the chaos to reach something beautiful, where they're able to follow their passion. But for a lot of them, it really leaves a deep impact, like you said, on their self-esteem and their confidence. If the talent aspect is not acknowledged and addressed,
mm.
a lot of times, we hear this from teachers. He's gifted. Look at his handwriting, but we are like, these are two different things. And yes, he could be a very, very intelligent and a talented kid and could have bad handwriting. Uh, but sometimes I think teachers and even parents get stuck on these aspects, the behavioral aspects, and the talent is not looked at. So I was wondering if you had any examples to share of how, despite the challenge that the child showed in terms of their behavior or the naughtiness or a disability, how can a school also look at the talent and nurture that?
So, like I've been saying so far, that we have to look at the child holistically, right? We are not focused just on the area where he can't do things,
Mm,
but we are looking at the whole child and seeing the things he can do.
mm,
And as is often seen with children or with anybody, that when we encourage that part, that positive aspect, perhaps the other things go down or get eliminated in the process.
right, right. Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I have often seen these kids doing well with, if you get them mentors who are specialized in their subject areas, because at times their levels of ability are, they outweigh the teacher's knowledge. So
Mm,
it really helps them to get mentors even at a young
right.
age, those who are able to interact well with them. It helps to, we've tried things like get them in the higher classes for some subjects. That helps them to keep them more
Mm,
engaged.
mm,
That might even help them to make friends, right? Because they get along with them. Their
mm,
intellectual level sometimes matches
mm.
the older kids, right, rather than their same age peers. Um, and yes, look at the child holistically, not highlight only the talent as well, but all areas of their well-being, and ensure all areas of well-being are, developing in a balanced form. Uh, I was just wondering, considering, you've been writing, in the last couple of years, a lot of short stories as well. What has been the again the image of children uh, with autism or with disabilities in literature and media, and how is that impacting, all of us?
So, um, have you read this book, The Curious Incident of the Dog at Nighttime?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That is one of my favorite books. Uh, and I would love everybody to read that.
I'll put it
Um,
in that box. Yes.
yeah. Um, as far as ASD goes, I don't think in India we have too many such books, do we? Samina, have you come across?
So, I think some publishers are doing a good job. I know, like I've been scouting personally, so I know Tulika has some interesting books where they're really bringing on again children with disability, children from various cultural backgrounds, children across blended families, and but and really think it helps to normalize it. It
Mm,
helps these kids to also identify and relate with the characters because they're around us, right? It's just that we don't see them in the media. And therefore, we think they're, less in number, they're not here, they're in special schools, but that's not the case. So, and of course, we know Tare Zameen Pe did
yes.
wonderful for, I
Yeah.
think, especially the Hindi viewing,
Mm,
public, where it even, in fact, even that's twice exceptional, where they show talent in that kid plus
mm,
dyslexia, right? So that was, I
yeah.
think, a beautifully made movie in that regard.
And um, yeah, so I think it becomes very easy for even professionals to explain to parents that what is wrong with your child. You can say, "Oh, have you seen Tare Zameen Par?" You know.
Yes, correct.
The other movie, of course, is My Name is Khan.
Ah, yes, true. That was ASD.
Yes, that was ASD.
That was ASD, right?
Yeah. Um, so, so I think, as you say, yes, there are picture books which for young kids,
Yes.
which do uh, highlight differences
Mhm.
in all aspects, which is very good. And but I don't see too many, books for middle grade children or which talk about this. But we need to,
We need to.
um, just as you say, just to normalize it. Uh, it's
Absolutely.
not, and of course the approach cannot be preachy because nobody wants to read that.
Mm.
But if it's just part of what goes on in life and what can happen around us, I think it's acceptable.
Right. Yeah. Uh, yeah, and I think that's what your book also comes close to, of not being preachy, but really just sharing the life of that kid and the family and everybody around the character. Um, what do you hope readers would take from the book? What was your intention?
Huh. So I would again say that I don't write because I want to influence someone or, you know, I just write because if something is uh, resonates with me, if something is special with me, I want to write about it.
Hmm.
Um, and if others also see it as something helpful, wow, that's a bonus. But I don't think that's why I write.
Mm-hmm.
However, with this book, when I have shared it with some parents of ASD children, and they have said that it feels like their voice,
Oh, wow.
uh, then that has meant a lot to me because I didn't know that, or I didn't even dare to hope for that. But that was a great validation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that also speaks that you've really understood what they might be experiencing, right?
Mm,
For them to be able to relate to the characters in the book. Um, yeah, and your the bonus has become very important for us.
yes. So, my takeaway would again, as I say, like some people ask me, oh, so you write books for children?
Mm,
And I like to correct them and say, no, I have written books about children,
yes.
you
Yeah.
know, but they are books that can be enjoyed by adults as well.
Absolutely.
And with this particular book, where the narrative is given by multiple points of view, so
Mm,
I think it's an important book for a teacher, for a parent, for a child, for really anyone,
right. Yeah.
because, yeah, you will take from it what you need, sort of. You know?
Viewpoint that you need. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe I'll just pause here for a bit and see if anybody in the audience would like to, share something, ask something, say something. You can just unmute or put something in the chat if you're like.
So, Zarin, it
Yes.
is, I mean, your book was so amazing, I tell you, because it gives you a peep into the life of the school, you know, the different people who come into a school system, and how beautifully you have woven so many aspects of the environment around the child. That was wonderful, you know. And since I know you, I always I wonder, you know, that how you must have made your little notes. And I mean, these little notes must have really helped you to create such a beautiful book. So we would love to hear about how do you manage to get those little nuances about the attitude of the people around the child, and the behavior of the children. How do you do it?
So, thank you, Malti ma'am. Uh, yeah, so I think two things. One is, in a crowd, I tend to be quiet. Okay, I tend to be the silent one. And therefore, I'm listening more than speaking, which helps. Two is, of course, I'm very, while I don't keep notes as in with a paper and pen or something, but anything unusual, anything that strikes a note with how a person speaks, behaves, whatever, somehow gets filed in my brain somewhere. And then that emerges when I'm writing something, you know. For example, I have mentioned that this principle was called Kanan Bala by the children. Now, that is actually something my father said once about a person, you know. And I thought, oh wow, that's very interesting. So it just remained in my head, and then it came into this book, you know. So like that, something overheard or heard or whatever, those things fortunately come out at the right time.
That is an intriguing process.
Correct. Thank you for sharing.
Yes. Anybody else would want to share something? I remember talking to you, Zareen ma'am, about this in one of our earlier conversations. But parents sometimes go from school to school trying to identify which is the right school for my kid. In India, because the policies of giftedness are just being formulated, there are only a handful of schools across India who actually address uh, gifted and also special needs in an inclusive and integrated and a mainstream setup. What are your thoughts on finding the right school for my child?
Yeah, that's a tough one because there's no one size fits all.
Mm,
Uh, and this whole thing about the different boards that we now have in India, you
mhm,
know, and it's somehow become a kind of trend
mm,
that if I can afford it, I will send my child to an IGCSE or an IB school, and the rest is all rubbish.
mm,
And having taught in all shades of school, again, I would like to say that I don't agree with that.
mm,
I think even our state board schools, I mean, the state board curriculum has improved a great deal. So also the ICSE, the CBSE, you know. Yes, certainly international boards have hundreds of years of research and, so perhaps they have more to offer, you know.
right.
But I think our boards are also catching up.
Mm,
So I don't think it is the board that we should really look for and just dismiss that if it's an Indian board, it's no good.
mm,
I don't think it works like that. Again, we have to see the school as a whole. And I'll come back to my point about the human beings in that school. Because whatever the curriculum, if the intent and the action that matches that intent is missing, then the best school can do you no good.
mm.
Um, so, yeah, that's what I would like to say. Mhm.
Right. Yeah, and this is really a message out to, I think sometimes a teacher can be such a strong advocate that they'll make even the school adapt and change some systems. And I've seen those amazing teachers. And I'm sure
Yes.
you're one of those teachers who are constantly advocating for the kids in your classroom. And yeah, even without policies and without resources, there's so much that you can do just with that intention and sensitivity, because a lot of gifted kids with disabilities who feel different than the others in the classroom need that sensitivity and need that support. um, and I always tell this parents, first you find a school which is open, at least they're open to a dialogue with parents. That is like your first prerequisite. It does not matter what board and how fancy or not
Mhm.
fancy the school is.
Yes.
So just the openness of having a dialogue with the kids
Yes.
can really go a long way. I have another question here. Um, so Mrinalini, you want to unmute and share? Mrinalini, you want to unmute and ask? Okay, maybe I can read it out. She says she wanted to ask that can we arrange some platform where gifted children with disability can meet so that we understand what their needs are, because how do we, even if we want to address them, how do we start even?
Mm.
So are there platforms, have you come across something that might be helpful for us to understand them, their needs?
Um, I haven't.
Okay.
And, like, it's not, my focus is not gifted children,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So I don't know too much about this. But yeah, it's a very good suggestion, and I'm sure, Samina, you could take it up.
Yes, yes. In fact, we are hoping that the conference is one such place where all stakeholders come together and there is voices heard of all individuals in this arena. So yeah, that's one way of doing that. But we definitely need more literature and voices. Yes, Aswat.
Good, no, good evening, team, everybody. Uh, Sabina ma'am, I am Sanjukta from Nagpur, working with the Bhavan's group of schools. I'm a school psychologist, but here in Bhavan Civil Lines, we really practice. And I'm happy to admit that we have got 59 to 60 children with special needs, particularly with autism, Down syndrome. And what ma'am had asked the question, any platform, when we make a platform for only differently able children, again it is we are talking about exclusion. The school can be the best platform, and what Zarina ma'am said, ki the CBSE or even our Indian school systems are actually offering a lot of exemptions for the children and the people with any limitations, and the unconditional love. And in my school, what I do is sensitizing the whole class. When the classmate starts understanding the need of the child, they are the best person to help the child. I have seen a cerebral palsy child when he was young. He was in till sixth and fifth and sixth. He was helped to go to the washroom with the support people of our school. But when he went to in the adolescent age, his classmate boys used to take him to the washroom, and they were very happy to carry him even, because with the time he was unable. In 11th and 12th, the boys of the class used, if sometimes something happened, nobody used to make fun of him, rather support him. And in this part, the children only sensitize their parents also. Some of the cases, the parents came कि मैम इस बच्चे को ये प्रॉब्लम है, मेरा बच्चा तो अच्छा है. The children, they came up कि वो भी मेरे तरह है, he is or she is absolutely like me, only his or her expression is little different. So the unconditional love and attitudinal change that we should talk about, and we should always encourage the parents with children with special needs and gifted ones. I have a child in class 5th who is a boy with 70% ASD with high intelligence. He is a gifted child. He can see any language and he can write. So if we encourage them, ma'am, it is a wonderful way. I'm really looking forward. And this platform, the conference, we are looking forward. Even this webinar, we are also learning and we are also getting motivated. Okay, they can be included and they need to be included. What ma'am said about ADHD children, actually, this is in need. We need to sensitize the parents of the child and other children also, as well as the teachers also.
Right.
As well the teachers also.
Sanjukta ma'am,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank
Yes, ma'am.
Sanjukta
Thank
ma'am,
you.
for sharing. It really looks like the school is doing wonderful, and like you said beautifully, it's just attitudinal shift that is needed. And we would, we really hope to see you
Yes,
at the
ma'am.
conference and know more about your work. And you rightly also said that let's not create exclusive platforms, but have inclusive platforms again, where everybody is talking together and understanding each other. Thank you so much. And it's wonderful work that I hear you're doing and your school. So yeah, and applause for that. And really, we hope to hear your voices at the conference as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thanks.
Yes. Aswaji, you want to ask something? And then there's another question in the chat box.
Sure. Well, not exactly to ask, but since you said something to share and for the benefits of everybody else, I mean, a bunch of people here know me and my background, but for others, yeah, I am a gifted adult. I am a parent of a gifted child, although he's not on the spectrum that is of the topic for today. But I have a college friend who is currently settled in US, and his wife had posted an interesting piece that I quickly wanted to share. I'll take just 30 seconds. She has put something on Facebook a few days back, which I suddenly recollected as I was hearing Zarin talk about all the experiences and Samina sharing all the other parts. So what she had put, I'm just going to read off the Facebook post. I was able to find it as as everybody was talking. Food for thought for all moms and dads, since this is the biggest and kindest group I know. Watching my neurodivergent kid play at swim camp with limited number of toys versus number of kids. Most of the other kids figured out pretty quickly that they could wrangle his floats from him or strategize with friends to get his toys. My kid is non-confrontational and always moves on happily to do something else. I am not going to interfere and I'll let him learn playground or life rules, and instructors will step in to balance it for him if needed. But this is just a heartfelt request to all parents to make kindness a regular conversation for kids of all kinds. It just takes one kind kid to help him out in a social situation. We are yet to find that one in our long 12 years, but we are not losing hope. And no, this post isn't for the neurodivergent group, we already know. It is for the rest of the world who can just help a tiny bit and make this world a better place for us. So that's just something I wanted to share since it felt relevant. And then, yeah, I mean, a small kindness for somebody, a small learning in this area would probably go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really nice. Thank you for sharing. Zareen ma'am, there's also another question in the chat. Can you recall any strength-based approach that was tried in your school by you or a spirited teacher that helped in bringing out the gifts and talents in a child with exceptionally higher levels of intelligence?
So I would say, the very easy and very lazy, I would say lazy way is to give worksheets, because teachers just want to have quiet in the classroom, right? So these children who are quick to do their work, how do you keep them quiet? How do you keep them engaged? Keep some worksheets ready and just give those. I'm not a big proponent of that. I think what I have seen is also like what you were sharing earlier, Samina, that we have to uh, find ways of engaging them where their interest area is encouraged, whether it is through a mentor or through providing books or something additional, like if children, for instance, those children who like reading, we can have book clubs for them. We can take them out to the bookstore to buy books for the library, which this I have personally done. And, then the children can share in assembly why these particular books were chosen. So when it comes from their peers, more
Very nice.
likelihood that that book will be read, Then, of course, there may be children who are gifted with technology. So that is an area where they could help out the adults like me. Like I always say that I'm not a digital native, so I go to everybody under 12 years old and say, how do I work this or what do I do? And I think they love that they are able to share something that we supposedly, the older and wiser one, is completely lost.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's just identifying the area and then seeing the means of how to make that fit.
Mm, mm. Yes, absolutely. If I'm not mistaken, one of our schools is also trying out, I think it's the Ganesh Nagar school, it's trying out mentors again for some of the kids and bringing in people who are, like a designer and bringing in for a kid who's really creative with what, they're doing. And they can be such great role models to also positively influence the child's development of social skills, which some of these children with disability, some of them might be struggling with, especially the ones on the spectrum. And yeah, and I love the idea of taking them to buy books for the school and then having them share that with the other kids. I think that's a beautiful example. Yeah, we have one more person with her hand raised. Usha ji.
Yes, hi. Yeah, ma'am, thank you so much for all those insights. And uh, Ms. Manaswala, I think I've also read a lot of your articles and little stories. And, to just introduce who I am a research scholar from Hyderabad, Mahindra University. And I'm very specifically working on how these gifted students are understood and in a school for that matter. For now, I'm working only with the urban schools. After spending more than 3 to 4 months intensively in the classroom observation, and trying to understand the teacher's perspective, one thing that strongly comes out is, ma'am, we have 40 students in a classroom. How do we identify? Even if we identify, how do we engage them? Or for that matter, the identification strategies or the methods that were used also were like surprise. When I was so shocked when I said surprise test, or the students who've gone to olympiads. And that's what been happening with the after NEP 2020, and the UDA's report is also talking about this. It mentions about the olympiads and competitions. So how ma'am, Zareen ma'am, how do you see, because as an educationist, how do you see this forced approach or jumping approach where teachers are clueless of what's happening with the gifted education? For that matter, very few teachers know about it. So how do you look at this or understand it? Maybe if you can
Yeah.
shed some light on it. So
So, um, like I said, while teachers undergo their B.Ed training, they are introduced to these aspects, right? But unfortunately, that is so theoretical that it just helps them to answer the exam, but it doesn't really prepare them for how to function in the classroom. So I think this is where the connect with the mental health professionals is very important. So just as you have Samina, who is linked with the Kaveri schools, and I'm sure you have many other people. So I think every school needs to have a very strong mental health department that consists of psychologists, special educators, therapists, whatever, a resource room kind of space. And again, what is often seen is that in many schools, the two work parallelly. You know, like teachers say, ये बच्चे को प्रॉब्लम है, उसको भेज दो काउंसलर के पास. Like that's some way of taking it off my head.
Right.
And then the counselor or whoever works something out, and again, no relation to what is happening in the classroom. So that approach cannot work. So again, the trust has to be between both these departments. And when there is then the mental health professionals can give the methods, can help, and together we can make it happen. We can make it work for the child. So I have certainly learned from my interactions with mental health professionals.
If I might add a little bit more to it, it's very important to also track children. So, keep anecdotal evidence. Teachers need to keep anecdotal evidence from a younger age, and then that gets passed on over the years for us to therefore be able to identify where this kid is, what has been the development over the years, what are the areas where there is potential but we've not explored it, or we are yet to nurture it. uh, I think that will also go a long way in our schools. Most often, the kid gets admitted in the same school and is there in that school for about, about 10 years. And tracking kids with good anecdotal evidence is really, really important. And we at Kaveri are working on tools that will help teachers observe kids more, beyond handwriting and beyond marks and beyond who speaks confidently, because that comes from exposure, perhaps that comes from because parents are privileged and more educated, but that does not necessarily tell you who has potential and who does not have. So we are also trying to come up with tools that will help us observe kids with a different lens. I always say we need to put on a different lens if we are to catch these gems and identify these gems in our classrooms. So that might be helpful as well. I hope that answers your question. We have two more, and that's about it because we've run out of time. Basanti ma'am, would you like to?
Hi, good evening, everyone. And thank you for organizing this. It has been very, very interesting and insightful so far in terms of learning about different books. I have just ordered 2 books of Zarin ma'am on Amazon just now. I didn't know about these books. I'm a special educator and I head early primary wing of Silver Oaks International School in Hyderabad. And I also look after the Supportive Learning Center. So we do a reading program in our school very extensively. And the reason behind this is to have early intervention and bridge the learning gaps so that we don't have, children struggling later in later years. So while doing, when I was hearing few people who were sharing, their experiences, one thing which has really worked well for us is involving parents into the program, like especially if students are struggling to read or whichever lexile level they are reading. I think if we involve parents, so there are in grade 1, there are kids who are reading 1100 lexile. So we are just talking about fluency here. And then there is a child who is still struggling with letters and, 2-letter words or sight words and all. So when you have so much of diversity in a classroom, it is very difficult for teacher to really bridge those gaps. Not necessarily that she has to start teaching 1100 lexile in the classroom, but how do you cater to that kind of need in the classroom when, the 5 kids are getting bored because you are doing sky letters and, earth letters and all.
Right.
So one is that we regroup these kids and we run a reading program so that everybody's needs are met. The other thing is involving parents. We have a conference with them and we suggest books. And one learning we had in past few years is that parents are actually clueless. They really do not know how to choose a book. What are the resources? Something as simple as just providing a website or names of certain books, and if you just could explain the progression to them, like if your child is at letter level or 2-letter words or family words or whatever those levels are, that has been really appreciated by parents, and there has been significant improvement in most of the kids when it comes to doing this reading program in the school. So I thought I would share this because it has been helpful for us in the school and it has benefited kids.
Thank you for sharing that, because we had a similar question in the YouTube saying that how to make parents accept when their children have abilities or disabilities and all that. I think the parent really needs to feel safe, Otherwise, there are always this offensive and defensive teams playing between the school and parent. And I think what you suggested is brilliant, because you're right, there is lack of awareness and knowledge as to how do I take my child from here to the next level. What is the next level? What does it look like? Otherwise, they're all stuck here, and the
Yes.
child is frustrated, and the teacher is frustrated, and the parent is frustrated, because eventually some of these kids dislike school and don't want to go to school,
Yes.
right? So thank you so much, Basanti ma'am, for that.
Pleasure.
Last comment or question from Rashi ma'am, and then we wrap up.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving me that opportunity. We spoke about the children, we spoke about the parents, but my question is regarding the teachers. When a gifted child shifts from one standard to the next standard, it's generally the notion of the teachers passed on that this child is like that only. So the new teacher also has that thing in the mind and looks through that lens to the child. So how to reduce that thing and guide teachers to take steps for the betterment of the child and not to carry the last year's notion, because the child may have some improvement, but because of that thing, the next teacher also pinpoints the same thing and the child may then feel like whatever efforts I'm putting, it's of no use.
Yeah. Zarin ma'am, why don't you take this one? Because I see a glimpse of it in your book as well. The new teacher, right? Yes.
Yeah. So I think one is, of course, that like I keep saying, the teacher in our country or perhaps anywhere else is overworked, paid very little, often has wandered into this profession without wanting to be in it. By and large, I'm saying. Of course, there are exceptions. So that teacher's social, emotional health is so important, and it's for the school management, it's for the principal of the school to understand that, first of all, and to offer a kind of nurturing environment where every teacher feels understood and valued. And then, yes, then one can have the expectation that how will this teacher in turn reach out to every child. And then it is by offering the tools, the methods, as well as, yes, I understand what you're going through, but we are with you. So when there is that sense of kind of teamwork, family feeling, then it will happen. Otherwise, that cynicism is there. And the teacher is not going to walk the extra mile.
Absolutely. Yeah. So empowering the teacher and also creating a sense of belonging in the school for teachers as well as students as well as parents. They really need to, like you said, it has to be like this is a family and we belong. And if the teachers are falling short, the parent steps up and chips in. And if the parent is struggling, then the teacher takes that extra effort and reaches out. Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be helpful. I hope that answered your question, Rashi ma'am. There are more questions, but unfortunately we'll have to close. But you can get in touch with us. Zarin ma'am, would you be okay in putting your email ID in the
Sure.
chat, maybe for
Sure.
them, and they can get in touch with you? I've already put our email ID and website. Feel free to get in touch with us.
And I would request all of you to read the book
Yes,
and to post a review.
yes, please do that. I really, in fact, I'm going to introduce this book as part of our parent support group reading. So if you all have any forums of teachers and parents, you must do like a reading and a group discussion. I think that will really bring out some beautiful things and enable conversations about this in our schools. Because what I liked about this school, it's not very heavy. And like ma'am said, she's added the humor part, which makes it a very easy read. So encourage you all to, read this book and the other books, which I am also yet to, by Zarin ji. So Zarin ji, thank you so much for taking the time and initiating this very, very needed conversation about children with special needs in our school system. And thank you to the audience for being here and interacting and participating and commenting and asking questions. Yes.
Yeah, I'm thankful to you, Samina, and to Malti ma'am for offering this platform. I wish you all the best for the conference
Thank you
that
so
you're going to have in October. And I think the audience for being here on a weekday so late in the evening, gosh, you seem to be creatures for punishment.
Oh,
and motivated teachers.
yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Zarin, for your
Thank
insightful
you.
session. I'm sure the all the people who attended, there was a lot of learning for all of us because you come with so much experience, and that book was fantastic, I tell you. It gives a peep of what happens in a school system for everybody, whether it's for a parent or for a teacher, or as a matter of fact, even for students, slightly older children, if we could have this book and talk to them about the bullying part of it, which you have so beautifully described. There are so many aspects of that book, in a school life, which you have really pointed out so lucidly. It was there, and we felt that yes, this happens in the school system. And thank you very much. And I really thank all the participants who were here attending. And it's a must read for everyone. Not that Zarin is my friend, but as a person who's interested in what's happening in the school, I feel that every principal needs to have this book as a discussion book amongst her teachers, amongst the special educators and counseling unit. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you, ma'am.
Thank you, Samina.
Thank you, ma'am.
It was
Right.
lovely.
Thank
The
you.
way you conducted was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Zarin, ma'am.